Thank you. I wanted to thank you, Bernabe, for your excellent presentation. There are many things that obviously are very helpful to guide us in Ecuador with dissemination of our information, and it's been very enlightening to hear about your experiences. But there's some things that I'd like to know a bit more about. Can you expound on them, perhaps? These are topics that I think we'll be speaking about for a longer period of time. For example, the SMS cost. These are just basic questions. I'm going to list them. And one is SMS. Who pays for the SMS? Does the state pay it? Does the producer pay it? How much? It seemed to me that the consumer price was rather interesting. Do you calculate inflation based on those prices? Does the Iomaing use them? In our country, for example, it's the National Statistics and Census Institute does this. They perform the consumer price research. And it seems to me that Chile has the agriculture department do it. My question specifically is that those prices that you gather, do they serve for calculation of the inflation? And with regards to user interaction, there's a window I saw about claims. What are the usual complaints or claims that are registered? I think that those are all the questions I have. The cost for SMS, well, we tendered it. When we started the project in 2006, there wasn't a single provider. So we did it with the University of Chile. Right now there are 3 companies that provide the service. They will send any type of information. The costs have gone down. So we tendered the service. We picked a company. The last year was 50 million pesos, Chilean pesos, which is the dollar's at 478 pesos per dollar. So that's what the platform is worth. This is what maintaining the service cost. The user cost is 100 costs, which is about 20 cents of a dollar, a US dollar. 15 cents. This is the cost for the user for each SMS, and it has a lower. There's a lower cost, 12 cents, that the user pays for subscribing to a product, a messaging service, and this means that every time there's a new price, the system will send you an alert, and you can stop the subscription with another code. This is aimed at a producer that maybe wants the price for 1 week, and he can subscribe and desubscribe as at will. So SMS services in Chile are used for everything, for television programs, for many things. The average is 250 pesos per message. So we tendered this service for 15 cents to charge service that would charge 50 cents to the user. So we started raising the consumer price because the INE has a survey to determine the consumer price index through which inflation is calculated. But this agency doesn't publish prices. They don't tell us about the prices. They don't tell us what they are because they published the prices up until 2008, and then they stopped because they changed their IPC base. They changed their methodology and stopped publishing prices. They only published indexes. We spoke with them about this because when this decision was made, we didn't have any more prices available. Nobody paid any attention to us until that year. We spoke. I was speaking with Alfredo about that period of time in 2007. There was the
empezaron a preocupar del precio y no había precios.
There was a freeze, and prices were necessary. So after this freeze, this crisis, the agency, this government agency, started giving us prices, consumer prices again. So we're trying to resolve this now in order to obtain a price. But if we want a price, we have to go get it ourselves, which is what we're doing. But the IPC, or the CPI, sorry, is calculated with these INA surveys. We have very few complaints. I'm speaking about 1 or 2 per year. So we have very few complaints or claims. And if I remember, since there are very few, I remember the last one, which was about the price for flowers. The user said, I'm selling flowers, and the price of this variety does not correspond to my price. We visited him and saw that there was a price in a nonconformity with the price collection, with the data collection. So there was, the variety was wrong, and there was basically an error, human error. But we do receive our suggestions, but we also accept them as claims, our main weakness. We feel that our regional coverage is very deficient. We need more regional coverage, and we do not have enough funds for this. We asked for the funds, but have not been given them. And the main suggestion is to improve our website at a regional level. That was a complaint. So improve our regional coverage. We have excellent coverage for the metropolitan region and other regions, but very few of the rest. So the other claim, or perhaps suggestion, is that we have a very few producer prices available. We have wholesale prices, industry prices, but very few producer prices for various products. We still have to obtain information about that. Bernadette. With regards to the concern of 19%, that the fact that only 19% of farmers use the information that you publish through the internet, I think that that's the same. That has to do with the people who have access to a computer. But if 2 weeks ago I analyzed the situation in South America, and between 70 and 80% covers food production to each of the countries that intervene, and that a large section of agriculture, 85 to 90% of agricultural production is in the hands of family growers, and they don't have access to cell phones or computers. And the other aspect I wanted to mention is that I heard you mention about Moquegua, that region. I made a presentation in that city, and I gave the example of this producer. If I have the price of if I have a product and I don't have the price available, what would you prefer? And they told me, well, that they would like the bag. And what is the message? The message is that in reality, have we asked ourselves if these family farmers know about the importance of the information about prices? If we have to research the variables that are out there, I think that that's the main problem, which is raise awareness among smaller farmers regarding the importance of gathering data in this millennium, in a globalized economy. What does it mean to know about a price, to know a price? And that's where my concern lies. This 19% that you showed us reflects those farmers that are exporting. The rest that provide the rest of the food to the city are in a void. They do not know how to use a computer. They don't have access to internet, and they have no training in this type of information and about the importance thereof. Well, we agree with your diagnosis, and the same thing happens in Chile. And a few weeks ago, a brief comment was that a reporter, an analyst, and someone from the Citizens Department talk to a group of smaller farmers in an area far away from the metropolitan region. An area called Kurakike. And it's at 40 minutes of the city. It's not that far away from the city. And few knew about what the prices were. They thought it was great to know about SMS and that they received these prices, but they didn't know why it was important. They don't know how to use the information. So we do have these different talks that we present in different areas, and we do organize workshops with farmers with the objective of showing what we have and showing them what it's for. Because one thing is to tell them about the price, and the other is to tell them what these prices are useful for, and share the needs that they need, or share their needs, sorry, if the information is useful, etc. But there's a fallacy, but we have to work on it long term, because it's basically raising awareness and educating the general public, especially small farmers.
Commendations. It was a very informative presentation. I am very impressed with the various tools that Chile uses to disseminate information. As such, I had to get a bit more clarity. I wanted to ask 4 questions. However, your presentation answered one, and the one from Santos brought it out, and Victor asked a second. So that leaves me with 2. I wanted to ask, in your SMS releases, you release by product, by origin, and price. I was wondering if there is a quality description attached to that price. And my other question was, what was the response of your web users with those pictograms that you depicted on there? So when you changed from words to more pictograms, what was the response from your web users? The pictures that you used instead of words, what was the response of your web users?
¿A los videos te refieres?
Do you mean the videos? The SMS messages are there's a code list, and you select a product and a variety and the market. That is what you can select. With each code, you select a product, variety, and market, and prices refer to the quality. You have first grade or second grade, but we cannot include as part of the code all the qualities. And they use this as a reference information. And we also tell them the origin of that price. The second question was regarding SMS, right? What was the user response?
Response to, you had mentioned that you recently changed your website, and that instead of using a lot of words, you have now begun to use pictures. So I was wondering, what was the response to your users to that change instead of words, pictures?
Yes, we had 2 types of responses. Our old users complained because we had changed the way we did things, but new users liked it better, because it was easier to access the information. Old users did not like it as much because they were used to doing things the old way. But as you saw, our number of users started to increase, and new users liked the new design. And what we learned from that was that you cannot make radical changes overnight. We had a web page design that we maintained for quite a long time with very few changes, but there came a time where we needed to do something different. You should always try to make changes to your web page.
keep it updated, modern. And we're making changes constantly now. We change sections, so that you improve the design of the web page, improve access, add products, and you avoid making radical changes. And users get used to that much better. But there came a time when our old page was too old and we needed to do something about it, change the entire web page. Now we know that it is better to make small changes constantly instead of having to change the entire page all of a sudden. With regards to the pictures or pictograms, users with a high level of education, analysts, for example, find it a bit childish. But farmers, people with lower level of education, find it easier to use, find pictograms easier to use. It depends on your audience. But if you want to publish something that is easy to access for farmers, you need to use more graphical design. You need to choose. We chose an intermediate option. We chose to use pictograms and drawings and make it more intuitive, to make it easier for users that have less experience in using the web. The other users were mad at us, but, well, we fulfilled our purpose. Blanca? You said something about the information that you're posting on the web for people that were listening to the radio in rural areas. Do you have a special design for that, for the information that is released over the radio? Because as SNEAM, every week we send information to 2 radio broadcast stations. And we need to use a very short message, not longer than 20 seconds. But we send them ready for them to use. It would be a good idea to have that over the internet also, because it's like a summary of the week. Yeah, we wanted to reach the radio users, and we started with a department from the Ministry of Agriculture who had some contacts with rural radio stations, and we created a product based on their recommendations. It was a product adapted to radio stations in the rural areas. Rural radio stations, thank you when you send them information, because they don't have much to broadcast. So we send them information for our users that would be of interest for users in rural areas. And the key to this was to use good techniques to have a high quality audio. We use a recording studio, a professional studio, and that was key for us to reach radio stations. Radio stations liked it. If you posted it in a podcaster, it was available for everyone. But we had to contact rural radio stations and tell them, well, take a look at this, you will find it interesting. And they actually did. They found it interesting, because it was a short message, and it was of interest to the rural areas, and it was well recorded, and that's what they liked the most. So they began using it. This is quite new, but it's been working really well. Apolinar? Bernabe, your presentation was quite interesting. Your presentation on how to disseminate information. In Bolivia, we're trying to begin a massive dissemination of information, and I would like to know what is your budget for that activity and who allocates that budget? We don't have a very high budget for that, for dissemination of information. Our budget is quite limited, in fact, and when you want to increase the budget, it's a very long process. You need to convince the authorities at the ministerial level and then budget authorities. So it's quite a long process, a difficult process. So what we've been doing is, this year, we requested some budget for printing material and for carrying out more studies on the farmers' needs. But we don't know what will be the response. We will find out in September. For publications, we have around 30 million pesos. For radio programs, we don't have a budget for that. Our webpage, we work with people from the computer department and SMS. The contract was 15 million pesos. And for having presentations, we have very little budget. We take the money from the general budget. We are doing what we can with whatever resources we have available. And in order for us to reach farmers, I know that we need a lot of resources, so we're trying to limit the number of, for example, of printed materials, to use the resources in other less expensive material, and we want to work in collaboration with other agencies from the ministry, like the Agricultural Development Institute, who provides technical assistance to farmers. They have offices in different communities, and farmers go there to request credit, for example. And we would like to distribute our printed material through this institute in depth. And we need to use our imagination and convince the people at the budget in the budget office. It's a very hard work, and I would like to have more resources to work on dissemination activities, the broadcasting activities, reallocate budget. We need to reallocate budget. That's what we're doing right now.
Ayrton, thank you very much. I just want to mention that our translator speaks Portuguese, and I wanted her to translate for me. So that way I won't choose my words so easily, and easily understood. Thank you. I congratulate, I know what Chile has been doing for the past few years. It's very well done. They advanced enormously in the past few years. It's a great example, a great success story for all of us in South America. Especially Brazil, which still has to showcase their work. Next year, I hope to be able to show you what we're doing. We faced enormous difficulties, especially for informatics. The question I wanted to make ask was, I don't know if you call it states or regions or departments, but each of them, you take various prices from these areas. You have a medium-term price, medium-level price. How do you, or this average price, how do you calculate an average price? Is it a weighted price, or how do you calculate it? It's easy because we don't have prices throughout the entire region. We have few regional prices, and if we do have a price available, for example, dairy, we have prices per plant, which tell us what their prices are, and we are committed not to, we have a confidentiality agreement not to reveal their prices, and we calculate this price by weighting or averaging the price. Someone mentioned that they're a good average, but I think Fernando mentioned the averages. We try to elaborate good averages. We do this by weighting volume, by averaging volume. Then when we have volumes available, such as the prices of fruits and vegetables at supermarkets, we don't have a volume price, so we just perform an average, a regular average, that we try to update. Because in the city of Santiago in Chile, as in many other countries, the population tends to be grouped socioeconomically. We have a higher income area, a lower income area, a medium income area. In the wholesaler areas, which is the metropolitan area, we also perform a volume estimate that reporters calculate an estimate with the trucks that arrive with the product, per product. So we perform a weighted average of the averages for volume. So we perform a weighted average based on local production because that way we don't run the risk of influencing prices. So even if the price is high, although the production is low, there won't be an influence. So we try to obtain this average price for each state in Brazil. Thank you. My question has to do with the assigning prices. I understood that those reporters who gather information, they key the pricing goes right to the internet. But my question is the following. Do you have keyboards or what? Do they make mistakes? What happens when they make mistakes? What software do you use? Is there a way of filtering mistakes or avoiding? What's the quality of the information gathered when you publish the prices right from the field? Well, we have an informatics requirement for, and it's a price, it's a corrector, so it uses a previous price and allows a fluctuation, percentage of fluctuation. But if the person types the wrong number, it goes through this filter. No, we need to maybe input some sort of a corrector. But reporters, they divide themselves up among the different sectors of the market, and then after their research, they're data collecting, they meet at their office, and they input the information on a worksheet. Because since there, let's say tomatoes, there are 2 or 3 that have data on tomatoes. So they share their information, they determine the minimum and maximum and frequent price, and then they upload it on a worksheet that goes to our office. So the person who, they go back to the central office, and before they click so that the information was published, they review what's been input. So they have another chance to look at what they do, and this is how we minimize mistakes. That, yes, we're human, they occur, but they're minimized. It doesn't happen too often. But yes, we should definitely ask the informatics department to maybe set up some sort of a mistake reviewer or a corrector. Any other questions?
I realized in your website you had subscribed customers, asking person to subscribe. Is there a difference between a subscribed customer, someone who's not subscribed, and how much of the information is actually free to a non-subscriber?
No, en acceso web no hay ninguna diferencia.
There's no difference. The only difference is that the user, the subscriber, will receive the information. When the information is published, the subscriber will receive a message alert. That's the only difference, but everyone has free access to the information. Another question for Bernabe? Questions from any other speakers, taking into account that we only have 15 minutes left? I would like to ask Dr. Palmer a question. He mentioned time and when the time of the day that you have to gather the data, but you didn't speak about how long it takes to disseminate the report with the data that you gather. Some people think that the earlier you disseminate the report, the better, because it'll give the producer time to run to his or her farm, harvest, and then reach the market. But I don't know. Some of us know that most people do not harvest in the afternoon, but they do it or very late, or late in the day, or very early in the morning, to avoid the day from getting too hot or the product from heating up. So, in my opinion, I consider that the report shouldn't be published later than noon, so it will serve as a guide for the following day. And in this manner, the reporter isn't pressured to make a very quick run through the different markets, because if he or she is pressured having to arrive at the office at 8 because the report has to be out by 9, he won't have the enough time to be able to go to visit all the markets and obtain many informants per product. So what's your experience, Dr. Palmer, regarding this aspect?
Very interesting, because one of the things that I have advocated all the time is your manuals and what your instructions say. And in Mexico, they are like about 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. We are no later than 1 o'clock. Reports, they start going out at 11 a.m. And if there are shipping point reports, they go out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Most of the sales at these shipping point places take place in the morning from 8 o'clock till about 1 o'clock, and you don't dare to call any of these guys early in the morning. So it varies. It would be kind of hard for somebody to listen at 10 o'clock, pack the product, and take it to the market for the next day. Generally, you plan to go to the market when you have to go. If I go every Tuesday and Thursday, I go. And I just need the price to know how am I going to sell those products in the market the next day or whenever I go. So you should follow what you have in your manuals. Then determine with talking to the users and so when the information needs to go out. One thing it is good and you should always do is, if it's supposed to be out at 1 o'clock or at 10 o'clock or at 11 o'clock, it should be there at that time every day. It cannot be not out. There are some reports that are not reports that do not depend on you, that might have variable release times. However, those like the market prices, if you have them in your handbook or manuals that it will be going out at 10 a.m., it has to be 10 a.m. And you'll have to see how you do the investigation. To me, you really need to give these reporters a good time for them to do the research. And after 12, 11 to 1 is a good time. Later than that, maybe it's not so good. So they start 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. You get 4, 5, 6 hours of good investigation. So it varies. In Mexico, I know it's probably one of the earliest. I really don't check most of the other pages around. So it helps.
Gracias. Bueno, como no hay
And so no further questions, it seems to me. Oh, you have a question. Lester?
Yes, my question is directed to Mr. Lam, Frank Lam. We heard in previous presentations that it requires, to set up an MIS requires a very large investment. I think Frank also mentioned that when you look at the chicken and the egg, you go with the egg first. And so I want to find out, seeing that we in the Bahamas, we don't have an MIS. In fact, we're just getting out of the block. Where do we begin? Do we need to start with policy? Is it a private sector driven scenario? Can you give me some guideline as to where do we begin? Is data collection?
Gracias, Lester.
Thanks, Lester. In the Bahamas, there's a rather unique case here because, as you mentioned, it's a country that's very close to the United States that imports $500,000 per year in food commodities, with a population that's rather concentrated. Practically everyone lives in Nassau. And you have two main islands, which are Abaco and Andros. On these two islands, much of the production is concentrated, which obviously is aimed at the capital, at Nassau, where most of the consumers are for these products. Obviously, as we were speaking yesterday in my presentation, I think that many of you all also commented on this, the component of institutionalizing a MIS, or the concept of a market information system, is the basis or foundation to be able to strengthen and develop a new system. In this regard, I think that the fact that there's an institution such as yours, which is the Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation,
It's a very important step. For those of you who are not familiar with the Caribbean, many of the Caribbean countries have created corporations such as Trinidad and Tobago, the Guyanas, and Barbados. And these corporations play a more dynamic role than the ministries. And because of its nature, we have seen that market information systems tend to depend on these institutions, which are semi-autonomous institutions. So given what Dr. Palmer just told us, and I'm sure you will all agree on this, the process of data collection is the most critical element. We've seen this in our organization, OIMA, and I was asking Dr. Palmer what part of the budget goes for data collection, and he said that 87% of the budget was for paying salaries for reporters. And if we talk about other countries, we'll see that until now, the organizational distribution is focused on data collection and not so much on data analysis and dissemination. And we consider they're all important, but market information systems have focused more on collecting the information. In the case of the Bahamas, and I was going to discuss this with you, Lester, we have found that in the Bahamas has 700 islands. There are basically 3 islands who are the main islands, Altos, Abaco, and Nassau. And we were discussing with BAIC the possibility of opening some business centers, which will enable us to to make better use, a more rational use of the data that is collected. I will discuss this with you in the future or in due time, and this will be the end of my intervention. I think that you may begin by implementing a policy that will support the establishment of a market information system. This will be a major step, and we heard about Ecuador, and we heard about how important this component is to find support in the political area for the work that is done in a market information system. Any more questions?
Seeing that in the Caribbean, many of these corporations have been developed, and they've been handling the marketing information systems. Are you suggesting that government play a bigger role in the marketing intelligence systems? Because probably what was being implemented has not been working.
Yes, definitely. I think the public sector, and correct me if I'm wrong, or if I miss one, if I miss a country, but in Colombia and Honduras, currently the market information system is not directly under the umbrella of the ministry. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Maybe there's another country with that situation. But what I want to say is that we are clear on the fact that market information is a public good. And being a public good, the government the role played by the government through public institutions or semi-autonomous institutions has to be the driving force. I've heard about many initiatives, and I just received an email informing me of a project in southern Mexico, in Chiapas. They're interested in implementing a market information system, and the first thing I told them was that they should contact SNIM, because in several countries we find that, and I'm being honest here, we saw this in Central America a few months ago. People wanted to establish a market information system for fruits, a parallel system, parallel to the work that is being performed by other institutions. So I think that the role of the government is very important. And unfortunately, in many cases, when the concept is not institutionalized, institutions look for resources for external funds. And those funds are very short-lived. And many times they don't have an exit strategy to make these projects feasible or sustainable. In the Caribbean, we had an experience. We had a lot of funds to implement a regional market information system, and this project failed. And currently, CARICOM wishes to implement a regional market information system with a different approach, using a different approach. I've always promoted the idea before the CARICOM and before my colleagues in Central America that we cannot establish a regional system, market intelligence system, with weak market information systems at the country level, because that is a recipe for failure. So I believe that the governments should have a very important role to play under the concept of market information as a public good.
Bueno,
Well, today we finished with all the presentations for the different modules, and we made emphasis on the key activities that should be carried out in a market information system. I believe this was a very fruitful session. Presentations were quite interesting, and they gave us very useful information as how to perform activities within our market information systems with whatever resources we have available. I believe that many of us will replicate what we learned in this workshop in our market information systems, and we would like to thank our colleagues for presenting that information to us, for preparing their presentation and supporting us in this workshop. I believe that we are all aware of the importance of collecting data the right way, because if we don't do it right, then we will not be able to deliver reliable information and reliable analysis. And data collection depends to a large extent on reporters and informants. And we heard that from Dr. Palmer. We heard about the requirements that we need to look for when we interview reporters, because they're a key part of our staff. And we need to maintain good relations with them and with informants. And we always need to look for more informants to get more information on the market. And then we heard presentations by Dr. Espina and Arlene, where a great emphasis was made on the fact that we should not stop at data collection, but we should add value to the information we receive to meet the needs, the information needs of our users, in particular our authorities at the ministerial level. In Honduras, it's a Secretariat of Agriculture, not the ministry. And another important component, once we have that collected information, is dissemination. And we thank Bernabe for telling us about the different medias or the different means through which we can disseminate this information free of charge or with some charges. And for those of us who do not have a large budget for dissemination activities, we need to look for sponsors to reach all our audiences, especially the small-scale producers.
I also want to thank Blanca for having presented the work that SNEAM executed for certifying their activities by ISO. Congratulations, it's a great achievement. It's truly admirable. And I have many smaller questions that I can ask later. If not, we'll never leave this room. And I think that it's very important to document the lessons learned from your presentation, which is documenting all of the activities that we perform as part of the MIS, and the fact that it would be easier if the people, if the heads do not come to work one day, to have a manual available. Elaborating manuals is important for training any new staff that the MIS system hires. Is there another comment that someone would like to add? Final comment? Okay. So let's close this work session. And just to add that tomorrow we will be meeting to visit the Sonata market. And we ask you please to be on time tomorrow. We are meeting here at 5 a.m. Just to, thank you, Anid, just some announcements. We will be visiting the Sonata market, which is the main wholesale market in San Jose. The visit, we hope to be able to see the information gathering process, and for that reason, we're leaving the hotel at 5:15. So we will arrive at the market at 5:30, and from 5:30, as you see in your agendas, to 7:30, we will be walking through the market. We're going to give you more logistical information, but tomorrow what we're going to do is divide ourselves up into two groups, those of us who speak English, those of us who speak Spanish. In this way, the translators are going to, interpreters are going to divide themselves with the English groups. In that way, the guide can tell you the processes, and that way you can have better interaction and understand what's happening. So tomorrow, we're going to go with the Spanish-speaking group. I'll go with the Spanish-speaking group. The Sonara colleagues will surprise us with an excellent breakfast at 7:30. We're going to have breakfast for 1 hour, then we'll have a break, and then we will listen to a presentation from PIMA, which is the agricultural market program